Well, hi there. This is Aviation Adventures with Captain Ron. And all right, I owe O2 pilots the world over an apology. I sincerely owe them an apology. It has been brought to my attention a number of times that I have made disparaging comments, videos, all sorts of things about the O2. All right, well, I should know better. But I had a slightly different slant on it, and it's kind of embarrassing now when I think back on it in light of some of the people I know. But I was going out to the Air Force Flight Test Center to be officer in charge of current operations. That kept the ranges running on a daily basis. It was a lot of fun, and I was going to fly a support aircraft. And this is the sign that was out there when I was there. It's a historic sign now in the museum, but this was our Edwards sign, not the fancy, flashy stuff they got. But I was going to go out and fly the T-38. Okay, the T-38, that's Edwards in the background, is an absolutely beautiful aircraft. The astronauts call it, okay, I know what my demographic here that watches this, so I think I'm okay, but the astronauts call it the Golden Leg Spreader. It's a beautiful aircraft, and at the time, our paint job, we had the great paint job that looked beautiful. It was polyurethane. Now all the 38s, although they're going by the wayside, they all have this beautiful paint job, but back then, the 38s looked like they were painted with chalking white house paint, and they looked terrible. It was the world's worst paint job you'd ever seen. So when parked one of the, and I'm digressing here. See, well, this one says, "May you have blue skies for always," but I got the digress shirts also. But anyway, when we would park like at Vandenberg or any place else, our 38s next to ATC, Training Command 38s, people would look at that and go, wow, why does your airplane look so beautiful? And I said, well, we have our crew chiefs wash them every day. But okay, I was told that I was going to come out into the T-38. Now, en route, they sent me to the Instrument Pilot Instructor School where I spent about 6 weeks there learning how to teach the instrument refresher course in the Air Force, but I was going to come out in the 38, and that was a great airplane. I mean, you did neat things like you chased the F-16. Now, I don't want to do a spoiler alert here. Okay, I'm going to give it away. I did get into the T-38, and I do a whole video on that because you don't want two colonels bucking heads and getting caught in the middle as a lowly first lieutenant, which happened, and I talk about that in another video. It wasn't a good place to be at all, but I finally did get to chase with the T-38, senior flight examiner in Stanival, and this is one of the chase missions I did, the F-16 fire in the Maverick. But, okay, they said, well, we got a problem. We can't put you in the 38. And I go, oh, really? And it says, but what we can do is we can put you in the A-37. Okay, well, the A-37, yeah, it's more than just a re-engine, high-powered tweet. But I go, okay, well, they still use it for chasing aircraft and stuff like that. Not as much, but they still do. So, yeah, it's not so bad. It's a jet, I'm, okay. I'm a little bit disappointed, but, I understand things happen like that. Well, okay, I'm in IPIS, which sounds bad when you say it that way, Instrument Pilot Instructor School. Yeah, sounds like a urinary incontinence sort of thing. But anyway, I'm there and I talk to them and they said, well, we got a problem. We can't put you into the A-37. We're going to put you into an O-2. And I go, man, I didn't come in the Air Force to fly something with props. Now, okay, no offense against people who fly things with props, which pretty, that's all gone away. One of my classmates got a C-54 and he had to look up what it was. He didn't even know what it was. But anyway, okay. So I get put in the O2. This was not my first choice, not my second choice. It was way down there. But I said to Colonel, the Colonel that was my boss, Colonel Sanders, yep, that was really his name. He got a little, when he left, he got a Colonel Sanders bucket with corn and cluck under a buck. But yeah, Colonel Sanders, great guy. But I said, man, I better get out there pretty soon, or you guys are going to put me in the static display out in front of the test pilot school in the T-33 there, so I better get out there. So, okay, I got out there. Now, I got to fly the O-2. Now, this is the O-2 in a combat situation here. Now, our O-2, they talked about chasing the YC-14 and 15. I probably would not have gotten to do that because there were not many chase missions and there are a lot of pilots qualified to do it, and I was pretty low on the totem pole. But this airplane served a very important mission in Vietnam. In fact, I talk about Frank Burke, who was head of the B1 and B2 program. At the time, we were just squadron pilots in test ops together, and he and I flew the O-2, and we had an engine failure together, and we had some fun times flying it into Alameda, where that's now where they put on the MythBusters, some of their shows there, because it's gone away. But I'm digressing again. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's a great airplane, and Frank really distinguished himself in Vietnam in this airplane. And there's a lot of people who did very great things in this airplane. Forward air control. Now, okay, you're down in essentially the weeds here, treetop level. Small arms fire is a big deal. You're much more vulnerable. You are slow. The people know how to lead something like you. They don't know how to lead an F4 very well. That takes quite a bit of work to get that down. But they know how to lead something that flies as slow as this, to shoot you. So these guys were brave. They did a great job. They were the forward air controllers. Actually, the A-37, my unit I was in, they sent them someplace to be fast facts, forward air controllers, which would be kind of cool. But we had all sorts of neat things we could do with that airplane when we dropped bombs and fired the gun and stuff like that. But at least, even as a fast fact, you had a gun on it. Real nice 7.62, 3,000 rounds a minute. But anyway, okay, so this is a great airplane for the purpose it did. What I basically did in the O-2 out at Edwards was I went and got parts for airplanes that were down, or I hauled drunken colonels and higher around who were going to and from parties. It was a quiet flight because they're all sleeping, but it wasn't really the mission I signed up for. Now, okay, I can't talk about this without talking about the other forward air control aircraft, which is the O-1 here, and the Bird Dog. Okay, I actually have a friend of mine, an airline pilot, who said he learned to fly a helicopter because of this airplane. And I'm going, really? How did you learn to fly a helicopter flying the Bird Dog? And he says, well, I got shot down, and this helicopter came in to pick me up. And OH-58 or something like that. I forget what it was. It was it was a rescue helicopter, but it wasn't very sophisticated at all. I think it had the piston engine in it. It wasn't like a UH-1 that had the jet engine, so it was pretty crude. And he gets picked up. And okay, that's great. Now he's flying out of there, and all of a sudden they take small arms fire, and it kills the pilot flying the helicopter. Well, my friend was not a helicopter-rated pilot, had not flown a helicopter before, and I'm not even sure if he'd been in a helicopter. You probably go for survival. We get it in survival school, but it's not the same thing riding and stuff like that. So anyway, all of a sudden, he's in the helicopter, and he is pilot in command, so he is giving himself dual instruction. And he said basically he went up to about 11,000 feet trying to figure out how to fly this thing, and it was successful in getting back to base and landing it without killing himself. So that's how you can fly a Bird Dog and learn how to fly a helicopter. Okay. If that isn't enough digression for you, I don't know. I think my digression meter is pegged on this one. I'm obviously wearing the wrong shirt. I should wear my digression shirt. Anyway, so there I am. And I don't care if you put on the orange flight suit of the super cool test pilot. It's not quite the same. Okay. This is a picture of me, much younger back then, in front of the O-2. And I ended up flying it for about 4 months. And then I got able to get checked out in the 30 Now, one thing interesting about this, Edwards has kind of an unusual attitude. It's got a lot of big egos out there. It's got a lot of test pilots. And there's various things that are prohibited by the operating command. And I think one of them is single engine stalls, if I remember correctly. They were prohibited at the time. So one of the things that the pilots out there do is they say, hey, this is a prohibited maneuver in the command. So I'm going to show you that. The other funny thing is they will bring in aircraft for the test pilots in test pilot school to fly, so they get to evaluate different aircraft. And they brought in an A4 one time, and Edwards has basically the shiny switch theory. You get in there and you turn a shiny switch on, and they had one of the test pilots was flying no flap simulated flame out patterns. And after about the second one, he asked the instructor in the back seat, and of course, these guys, the instructors give the test pilots a lot of credit, more than they would a student, and they're not in their own command, so the rules are a little bit different, I guess. But anyway, he asked the student, well, how do you guys do this? He says, oh, we don't do no-flap simulated engine-out procedures. They're prohibited. So he goes, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I guess you don't know how they do it. So after 4 months in a fight between two colonels that became very, very nasty, and I talk about that in another video, but a fight that became very nasty, I finally got back into the T-38, and that's me there next to the T-38 out at Edwards. Nice, shiny airplane. And, okay, so like I said, I'm not the kind of guy who puts anybody down because I fly a neater airplane than you do. Of course, now I'm retired, and I got a neat 310 and a Great Lake, so I still do fly kind of neat airplanes, but I'm not flying the F-35, so I can't go up to an F-35 pilot and say, well, I fly the Great Lakes. I'm a much better pilot than you. That's not my style. Okay, I think that's not my style if you watch my videos. But anyway, okay, I apologize, like Larry the Cable Guy. I'm sorry about that. So the O-2 is a great aircraft. It did a great mission. It was flown by, in my opinion, and of course many other people, very brave pilots that were doing a very important service for the country. So I salute you. And I apologize. I will try, unless you watch, one of my past videos, I will try not to disparage O-2 pilots again. I'm sorry. Thank you for your input.